Hello, my name is Jake Brown. This is for my public speaking course at Hutchinson Community College. Today I'll be talking about history, obviously a subject that no one really likes. Everybody thinks it's really boring, but it really gives us an understanding of why we do the things we do. It teaches us about the mistakes we've made in the past, and it gives us a really good understanding of society. So, in my particular speech, I'll be talking about the Civil War. The basics of it, what caused the Civil War, what happened in the midst of it, and what happened to America after. So, causes of the Civil War: slavery and states' rights. People too often don't understand that both of them had a really big role in the Civil War. Slavery, probably a bigger impact, but they both had pretty big impacts. Slavery was a huge industry in the South, especially with plantation owners. So they basically made all their money off cotton, which was picked by slaves, and it was all done by slaves. So that was a huge moneymaker for Southerners, which caused them to want to split. It was making them lose money. And then states' rights. The North was regulating slavery more and more, and that ties in with slavery, but it also is states' rights, it's individual rights, and people want to have their individual rights. So, it goes either way, but they both tie in with each other. In the midst of the war, we saw things like families fighting against each other. We saw the Emancipation Proclamation, and we saw a United States president assassinated. That was a pretty big deal, obviously. So during the Civil War, the North really flourished with the economy. They had to fuel their wartime needs by producing a lot of stuff in industry. The economy was just booming. And then obviously the Emancipation Proclamation. So it didn't mean a lot at the time, but it did after the war because it really freed slaves, and South couldn't really do anything about it. The South, however, was really underfunded, didn't have a lot of money. They were trying to defend, their territory, and it was causing them huge problems. The North essentially destroyed the South, their structures, everything they kind of lived by, and this really caused the South to be in economic ruin. Sherman's March to the Sea is probably the biggest example of this. William Sherman led a militia, or like an army, down to the South, and they essentially just tore up railroads, like normal roads, and it cut off supplies to the South, making them virtually useless. They had nothing to fall back on, and kind of frustrated Southerners to the point where they kind of had to give in, and they had to give Black Americans citizenship, voting rights with like the 14th, 15th, and 16th Amendments. It was pretty big. Kind of showed that the South leaned back and couldn't do a whole lot. Voting, however, was still kind of shaky in the South. People created poll taxes, grandfather clauses, and other means of preventing citizenship to Black Americans. And really, it didn't end until 1950s, 1960s. Racism was obviously still flourishing with things like the KKK, the Ku Klux Klan. They essentially wanted to more or less really get in the heads of African Americans and people in the government that were in favor of radical Reconstruction, which was more of a northern ideal. So obviously the country is still in divide today too. It's just more subtle. We still have racism, obviously. People don't like people of other skin colors, and that's just the way it is. In conclusion, this info should benefit your knowledge by teaching about the Civil War more in depth. It should teach you about the cause of the war, what happened in the midst of it, and the effects on America after. Any questions? Okay, no questions. Whatever. Thank you for watching my speech.